Welcome back, friends, to our discussion on China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. This is Adnan Qaiser once again with Chapter 9. Uh, if you recall, in Chapter 8, we had discussed about uh, the free trade agreement which China has with Pakistan, as well as we discussed about various disadvantages which come with the CPEC agreement as well as a free trade agreement between China and Pakistan. So, continuing our discussion, ladies and gentlemen, in this chapter 9, I would be covering three important aspects of CPEC related activities or project. One, I would like to discuss just a brief overview of CPEC's early harvest projects and their financial outlay. Secondly, I would like to touch upon how and how much our governments have been using a trade financing facility with China to keep our economy afloat and to pay back the foreign debt which successive governments have accumulated over time. And lastly, I'll briefly tell you about the proposed CPEC oil pipeline as well as the tourist cities which are being connected to our current government's policy of creating housing for the people. So pay attention to this. So as I had mentioned to you earlier during our discussion, that CPEC's timeline comprises of three milestones. First was in 2015, when the CPEC agreement was initially signed between President Xi Jinping and the government of Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz. Second phase completes in year 2020, when early harvest projects are completed fully, and especially in the field of power generation and electricity production. Third milestone is 2025, which is also called as Vision 2025, by which all major hurdles are removed, and work is expected to be completed on all on the Gwadar Port City project as well. By 2025, all the 9 special economic zones are also expected to be fully constructed with completion of infrastructure, road and railway infrastructure development programs completed in the country. Final date of CPEC is 2030, when CPEC is supposed to be fully operational and gets going at full speed. However, as the projects keep meeting their financial close and they begin their operations, their financial payback also starts simultaneously. And there lies the catch, ladies and gentlemen. The question is, would these projects become viable immediately as they kickstart their operations to start generating the agreed profits between the two governments, and also begin paying back their loans and financial liabilities? Pakistan is said to be now charting out a plan under our new government for the repayment of CPEC related dues, which begin with the financial year 2018-2019. According to some media reports, the government has now woken up to the reality of severe shortfall in the inflows to cater for CPEC related liabilities and paybacks. I think the government had been complacent, if not sleeping, that by going to the International Monetary Fund or IMF for another bailout package for 12 billion US dollars, it would easily handle CPEC related repayments. However, with the statement which came from the US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo just a few days ago, prohibiting IMF to fund Pakistan for CPEC related debt retirement, it is certain that IMF would not come forward to help Pakistan in this time of economic crunch. So the government has its work cut out for it to see how it would finance its debt payout to China. As I said in the beginning, there is very little information available at the moment. However, it seems that nearly $47 billion worth of contracts have already been signed with regards to the CPEC projects. Out of this $47 billion worth of contracts, $22 billion worth projects have already achieved their financial close by the end of PMLN's government this year, which means their repayment also begins either from this financial year or at the most the next financial year, which is 2018-2019. Although it is said that actually the payment would start by 2020 and fully would be by 2023-2024. So in the energy sector, a financial close has been achieved in 14 projects worth 12.25 billion US dollars. However, 10 projects worth $11.34 billion have yet to reach their maturity and to become operational. In the energy sector, 6 projects comprising of 3 wind, 2 coal-powered and 1 solar-powered projects are already in operation. They're generating something like 3,839.5 megawatts of electricity. 3,839.5 megawatts of electricity. The value of these 6 projects is 4.5 billion US dollars, and their payment is due from the current fiscal year. However, the repayment of these operational projects and those that are yet to come online will be spread over a period of 25 to 30 years to be paid twice a year. That means a 6 monthly repayment is needed with regards to all CPEC related projects. The exact amount to be paid in these 6 monthly installments is not known, has not been made public as I told you, but it is estimated that a sum of about $71.5 million are expected to be paid to China twice a year in the short-term period. And as I had mentioned in my paper as well, that during this discussion that the last government of Pakistan had showed its secret willingness to deal in the Chinese currency as well, called renminbi, instead of US dollars in the Gwadar Port City project. Although I'm not an expert in this field, I'm not an economist, but I think that by accepting another country's currency, which is not renowned worldwide or used for transactions internationally, it amounts to mortgaging your own national currency, defying the international markets. That, I guess, will have huge repercussions on our economic stability and also the strategic national security and sovereignty of Pakistan. As I have told you earlier, that CPEC comprises of 2 or say 3 major components. One is the construction of all coal-powered, solar-powered and wind-powered plants for electricity generation. The second is the infrastructure development programs, projects like roads and railway networks. And third is the operationalization of the 9 special economic zones plus the Gwadar Trade City project. So far, all the mass transit and rail projects are still under completion. And until recently, I had read that land acquisitions for for the 9 SEZs have still not been completed. So it's a long road ahead for the current government as well. Meanwhile, in a worrying development and in a departure from Pakistan's supplicating, or what is called an infamous Kashkol policy, beseeching Riyadh or Washington every now and then for financial bailouts, and in the past, Pakistan has now begun using Chinese loans and its trade financing facility with China to pay off its foreign debts, which is a cause for extreme worry. As Pakistan's cash inflows from bilateral and multilateral donors and creditors dry up, especially the economic assistance which used to come from United States, which had been coming into the shape of economic assistance, economic aid, as well as the Coalition Support Fund, which we used to get from the US for our contribution in war on terror. The country has had to increase its reliance on China many times. So just to give you an example, that just in 1 year period from July to April of the last fiscal year, 2017-2018, Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen, had borrowed some 4.4 billion US dollars from Beijing in the shape of state as well as commercial loans. Moreover, in a June 2018 media report, it says that Pakistan has largely exhausted a Chinese trade financing facility to repay its foreign debt, as the finance ministry was finding it hard to find an alternate source to plug its fiscal deficit or the current account deficit in June this year, that is 2018, in a bid to maintain our currency reserves and prevent them from further falling. On the other hand, our autonomous State Bank of Pakistan has already utilized $1.5 billion of additional trade financing facility available to Pakistan under the China-Pakistan currency swap agreement or arrangement. So all these are pretty technical for the layman people, but those of you who have an economics background or a business background and might be contributing in CPEC related projects, so this is just for your background information. An editorial, an editorial in the eminent Dawn newspaper gave a scathing review on 27th May 2018, which I want to quote for you people. It says, "The growing tendency to rely on loans from China to finance the current account deficit needs to be carefully reviewed before matters assume unimaginable proportions. Borrowing on commercial terms from state-owned Chinese banks as a way to finance the growing external sector deficit is fast becoming the new norm, a fact that has very troubling implications for the country. For one, we do not know what to expect as we continue to go down the road of indebtedness to China. There might be some comfort in the thought that all will be well if our government, or any of our leaders for that matter, had a decent record of comprehending the long-term ramifications of such actions. But apparently, they are not understood. This is the price of failing to reform or to adapt. A new chapter in Pakistan's dependence on external powers may be opening before us as these loans grow and the deficits persist. One more time, nobody knows how it will all end." Unquote. So you can understand the gravity of the situation, which is being highlighted in the editorials of eminent newspapers as well. So as CPEC's financial outlay is getting out of control, our new government is now being suggested to renegotiate and review the remaining 28 billion US dollars worth of component of CPEC and bring it under the purview of the foreign direct investment instead of commercial loans. And that, as you have seen, has had made the Chinese foreign minister pretty upset, Wang Yi, on his visit to Pakistan on 7th of September 2018, this month. The foreign minister not only the Chinese foreign minister not only rejected this criticism that China is saddling Pakistan under heavy debt, but in a press conference, he particularly noted that CPEC has not inflicted a debt burden on Pakistan. So rather, he said, when these projects get completed and enter into operation, they will unleash huge economic benefits for Pakistan, and these will create considerable returns to the Pakistani economy. So these are the words of the Chinese foreign minister. However, I must also quote a Chinese professor, Dr. Jia Yu, who has made clear to us three things in a recently held CPEC Summit and Expo 2018 in Karachi. One, Pakistan should not consider CPEC as a gift to Pakistan by its iron brother China. Number two, Pakistan should not take CPEC for granted. Number three, she has counseled that both Pakistan's public and private sector should take ownership of the opportunities which are being offered by CPEC rather than looking towards China. So all these thoughts are require deliberation to consider. Now let's quickly review and look into the CPEC oil pipeline and the proposed tourist cities. Since we are not aware, as I keep mentioning, about the full scope of CPEC under the sun, information keeps trickling in. We have now learned that there is going to be a Gwadar-Kashgar oil pipeline as well, which will be built at the cost of 10 billion US dollars. So much so that after the visit of our current Prime Minister to Saudi Arabia, our information minister has revealed that Saudi Arabia has also shown interest to join CPEC as one of its partners. And investing some $10 billion in constructing an oil city in Gwadar with a refinery or something like that. So this is all good news, ladies and gentlemen. Till the time we should know that what is coming in the country as a foreign direct investment and how much is being given to us as state or commercial loans, which eventually have to be paid back by the people of Pakistan. Although the rental fee of the oil pipeline is expected to be nearly $1 billion, I'm not sure if this has been already negotiated with China about this oil pipeline between Gwadar and Kashgar. Then we have been told that instead of tourist cities only in the coastal areas, remember I mentioned to you about the coastal tourism? Offering nightlife and maybe casinos too in our Islamic Republic of Pakistan. The CPEC plans to build these so-called tourist cities all around the country. This looks again very, very promising and very good, but we must remember that Pakistan is not Bangkok or Las Vegas for that matter. Here we have people who are religious minded too, and who are generally conservative in their nature and their outlook, and adhere to strict moral values and social norms and principles. Remember I mentioned to you earlier about the frictions which are expected to come. Therefore, before planning any tourist city, such type of a tourist city in Pakistan, the government should be mindful of our cultural sensitivities and any future cultural or religious frictions in the country. So, according to the media reports, the tourist cities outsourced to international developers are expected to fetch some $20 billion in the country. Good luck. uh, Even if they are constructed on turnkey basis, which means build, own, operate, and then transfer, one doesn't know how viable they would be or how much revenue generating these cities would be. Um, Companies like Walt Disney are being considered to develop Gawadar and Kumrat areas, whereas DHA or Defense Housing and Bahria Town and others are expected to build Kalar Kahar and Chhatar planes. So, according to the government's estimate, about $5 billion are required in the shape of grants and assistance, international assistance for the housing, health, and education sectors in Pakistan, to which the national and international community is said, this has been reported in the media, is said to be willing to contribute under the government's new governance paradigm promised by the PTI's government. The last city built in Pakistan from scratch was Islamabad. I think it began in 1960s and finished in 1965. Islamabad has now grown to a population of some 1.5 million people in the past 55 years. But according to the government's forecast, in order to build another 4 million houses, 20 new satellite cities will have to be created around each CPEC related economic hub, or maybe the special economic zones, the 9 special economic zones which have been planned. So each satellite city will be at a distance of 40 to 60 kilometers, connected with high-speed rail or road network to facilitate the transportation of the workforce living out of major towns, yet remaining connected to their workplace of the CPEC related projects and SEZs. So this is a pretty ambitious plan of the government, to which we can say all the best. With this, I conclude the part 9 of this discussion, ladies and gentlemen. Depending upon the due course and time available to me, I'll come back with part 10, which is very important for your understanding as students of international affairs and geopolitics, because it will talk about the impediments or the obstacles or the hurdles which are in the way of CPEC until this is culminated. So I hope this discussion had been of some value to you. Go through media reports, international studies which are coming on the internet, and familiarize yourself more and more about how this CPEC is unfolding and how much your destiny is attached and the destiny of the country is attached to this huge project. This is a fortune changer. I tell you, as more and more trucks would be plying on the CPEC corridor, more money would be generated in our country, and that is going to bring more economic stability. But again, as I said, it's very important for us to understand the significance of the agreements, and we must sign those agreements on an equal footing with China. Rather than saluting to the big brother, the iron brother, and saying yes to all what it says. Thank you very much. Until next time, this is Adnan Qaiser. Khuda Hafiz for now.